Welcome. This is financial planning. We're going to start retirement two. This as well, just like retirement one had its own exam, retirement two has its own exam as well. By the way, the retirement one exams, I probably told you, were very good, and I'm hoping for that we all grasp what's going on in retirement two as well. They were good on average. There's a couple students struggling, and if you are struggling, feel free to ask me for any help. If you're not struggling and you want to do even better, ask me for help. Um, all right, so let's take a look at this slide set. We'll start out with this slide set. And as far as the timing of the course, I think we have plenty of time to finish the entire course. We're not going to miss anything. You certainly not have to worry about a snow day or anything. So let's take a look. So retirement planning two. Again, there's one exam that'll cover retirement planning two. That's the fourth exam. The last exam we'll have in this class is education planning and estate planning, and we'll do that at the end. And this test will come up in a couple weeks, retirement planning two. There's about 90 slides or so, so I'll do 20 or so a day. We'll be fine. We'll have time for homework and then to take the exam. Okay, what we'll cover, defined benefit plans. Like my parents would have had a defined benefit plan. People in that age group, they still exist today. You can still buy them. There's just not many more out there. There's not many out there. And they look really attractive now when you see these, but in the light of what's crashing in the market's crashing. But so, people in who are like your grandparents' age might have had one of these and they're enjoying the defined benefit as we speak. But generally, people have defined contribution plans. So we're going to today compare both of those. And so we're going to look at defined contribution plans as well. IRAs we'll look at the end, not today, but in the middle and the end of this chapter. We'll look at IRAs and so on. So we'll start with a defined benefit plan, a DB plan they call it for obvious reasons. It's employer sponsored, like it's an IBM plan. And they have a formula that's based on how long did you work at the company and how much money did you make. And then there's a percentage in there as well that the company furnishes. The higher percentage, the better the plan. And we talk about investment risk. Well, the investment risk is with the company you work for. If you work a certain number of years and make a certain salary, you're going to get a defined benefit, like $36,400 a year, or $72,900 a year. And if the markets do poorly like they are now, it's really not your problem. The company that you worked for has to make good on the payment. So it's got a great name. It's defined benefit. Your retirement benefit is defined. It's like a bond. Remember, like the coupon payment on a bond was $70 a year, and it's fixed. Like we call it fixed investment, fixed financing. If you're looking from the corporate side, defined benefit plans it's fixed. The money you get is a fixed amount. And so these plans are becoming less popular. Companies, frankly, don't like them because they have the investment risk. And so we've moved to defined contribution plans, which we'll look at as well today. So here's the plan. The benefit is defined. In other words, your pension, how much you get each year after working for a company, that's defined by a formula. For example, Becky receives $36,400 per year during retirement from General Motors. So she worked there maybe 27 years. At the end of her time, she was making maybe $50,000 a year on average the last 3 years. And the formula would tell her, okay, Becky, you're going to get $36,400 a year, $400 per year during your retirement years. Plus your Social Security, that wouldn't be so bad, especially if you're living out in Michigan. The benefit is formula driven. So we got to get used. Now you can multiply three numbers together. Finance majors, we could do that very well. There's nothing difficult here. You'll like the formula. I certainly do. Tappan Zee Bicycles defined benefit plan formula. And we're going to do this for Jimmy, the employee. So we have 2.5%. Now, that number is defined by Tappan Zee Bike. They chose 2.5%. I'd say it's a better plan if another company chose 2.7%. So higher is better, but the percentage the plan uses is unique to the plan. When they set up this plan, they decided to pay 2.5% of average salary the last 3 years, and then they multiply that by the number of years of service. So we take 2.5%. Maybe Ford Motor Company takes 3%. I don't know, but for our company, it's 2.5%. And then I figured out the salary that somebody earned the last 3 years. So this person, for the sake of time, is retiring in actually 2019. So my slide's a year old or so here. Then update this over the summer when I updated the rest of the slide set. But in any event, so picture them retiring in January of 2019. And so we look at the last 3 years' salary, 2018, 2017, and 2016, and we take an average of that. And so that's what I'm doing there in the formula. I'm taking the average of the last 3 years' salary right in the middle there, all those brackets, and I multiply that by 0.025, and I multiply that by 28, and you get 2.5% times 52,000 times 28 years is 36,400 a year. So when she retires, that's what she's going to make, 36,400 a year. That's going to be what she'd call her pension. Now, what you could say, take 2.5% times 28 and you get 70. Take 2.5%, the percentage the formula gives, times the years of service, 28, and you get 70 for 70%. In other words, somebody who works for the company for 28 years gets 70% salary replacement. The salary being what they earned on average the last 3 years working. Notes. What do we got here? The percentage is set by the company. So the higher, the better. It's not like the government tells us what it has to be. That's set by the company. The average salary for most formulas is based on the last 3 years of employment. That's typical. But, there's firms that might do something a little differently. Maybe the last 2 years, the last 5 years. But the last 3 years of salary is typical. The years of service is often capped at 30. So you'll hear somebody say, I've worked there 30 years. It really doesn't pay for me to work there any longer because the formula is set at 2.5% and the max number of years you could get is 30. Like if you take 30 times 2.5%, what you end up there with, 30 times 2.5, is 75% of salary. And so we could say somebody who works there 30 years caps out at 75% of salary. Since the 30 is capped, there's no way to increase that any further. Okay, so here's a question that you could work out. Now, what you could do is, read the question, answer it, and see if you get it right and move on. So basically what you do here is you have this person who worked the last 3 years. When she worked, she earned the money that's right there on the slide, $85,000, $87,000, $81,000. She works for the firm for 27 years. The company pays 3% times years of service. I kind of like that, right? It's capped at 30 years. 3% is better because if you take 3 times 30 years, you could actually replace up to 90% of your salary if you work for that company for 30 years. The last company, you can only replace 75% of salary. So after you work it through, you'll get $68,310 per year. So I'm going to take 3% times 27. I'm curious. So she's replacing 81% of her salary. Take 3% times 27 years. She's replacing 81% of her salary. If she works there the full 30 years, she would replace 90% of her salary. And the salary is defined as what she earns the last 3 years working. Repeat the last question, but assume Angie worked for the company for 32 years. Well, don't forget about the cap. The cap is 30. So try that and then push pause and come back. And so you take 3% times the average salary the last 3 years times the years of service, and you get 90% salary replacement. Take the 3% times 30 years, that's 90%. We're replacing 90% of her salary as defined by what she earned on average the last 3 years, and that becomes $75,900. So we remember we're capped at 30 years of service. So be careful of that on the exam if somebody worked more than 30 years and it says in the problem that it's capped at 30 years. You want to be sure to use 30 instead of, like in this case, it's 32 is how many years she actually worked there. So we might think, why bother staying at a place after 30 years? Why bother? Somebody might even say that who works. It's like, well, the most I could do is stay there 30 years and replace 90% of salary. I can't do any better than that. Why would I work after 30 years for a company or on a police force or as a nurse, anything that has a defined benefit plan like we're looking at here? So note, 3% times 30 years is 90% of salary. That's the max. That's what we're talking about here. Okay, perhaps a person who's been at the company 30 years already should retire because there's no other way in their mind to increase their pension. So think about that. They've worked there 30 years, it's capped at 30 years, and they tell you there's no other way to increase my pension. The best I could do is replace 90% of my salary. So think about that. A person can, however, take a promotion, right? That's one thing you could do if you stick around beyond age 30, earn more money, take that promotion, work overtime. So really there is a way to increase your pension by staying longer. If you can earn more money in those final years, you'll increase your pension. In other words, the average salary the last 3 years you earn is a component in the equation that we're using. That would increase their defined benefit. So the key point is it pays to earn more money in the final years of employment. For example, like in my field, if we had a defined benefit plan, if we worked that way, it would be good to be the chair of the department or the dean or have work some extra classes in order to bump that salary up at the end. Funding a defined benefit plan. How are they funded? The firm, like Apple, periodically contributes to an account in order to fund its pension liability. Apple has to fund these. It periodically puts money in. It puts the money in and it earns a certain return. So Apple's got to be sure it has somebody's defined benefit. Let's say I work for Apple, or that you do, and you're working for Apple and you have a defined benefit plan. They have to make sure they could pay the benefit that you're entitled to according to the formula, like the one that we looked at. The firm, not the employees, control the account. So the employees don't pick out stocks or bonds. They don't do anything. The firm handles this entire investment, the company itself. The firm has 100% control over how the pension dollars are invested. We're trusting Apple to do this. It's their job. The firm needs to accurately, present value analysis, they need to accurately estimate how much they have to put away in order to fund its employees' pensions. It's the firm's job to do that, to invest it properly, to put enough away. But a lot of them are surprised now, right, with the market crashing. Maybe their pensions are not funded near as well as they were before. I would imagine that's true. If the investment return is below expectations, the firm has an underfunded pension liability problem, and it's the firm's problem. The firm has to put more money in order to make up for that. And so in this instance, the firm is still liable. Even if the markets crash, the firm's not off the hook. It has to pay the benefits according to the defined benefit formulas, like one of the ones or a couple of the ones we looked at earlier today in this slide set. So what we say, how we kind of sum this all up with a couple of words here, a few words, is with defined benefit plans, the employers hold the investment risk. The employees are off the hook. They don't choose stocks and bonds and hope for the best. The employers have to make it all work. They have to make sure the employees get their defined benefit. They're obligated. I remember a time years ago when I looked at reading an article, and that when you buy a General Motors car, about $1,800 of the cost of the car that you're paying for that goes to the defined benefit plan. Somebody had figured out or estimated that. The nice thing about a defined benefit plan is we don't have to worry when the market tanks like it has been lately. It's been bouncing around a lot, but it's down a lot since about a month ago. You don't have to worry about that. You're going to get your $36,400 a year if that's what the formula says you're going to get. So you might start thinking, well, what if the company goes bankrupt? What happens if General Motors goes bankrupt? Well, what we need to see here, what the FDIC is, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. There's something similar for defined benefit plans in our country. There's the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. It's like a federal agency that guarantees your defined benefit. And so the max benefit in 2019 was $67,295. So let's say a person's benefit's really $73,000. Well, if the company went belly up, they'd get $67,295 because the federal government is running this like insurance company for defined benefit plans. It collects premium dollars from all the firms that have defined benefit plans across the country. And when one of them goes bankrupt, when one of the firms goes bankrupt and they can't pay their pension liability, the government insurance company, this PBGC, takes over. So the nice thing about it, when you have a defined benefit plan, if the company you work for goes bankrupt, you're still going to get paid at least up to this max benefit for 2019. So in 2010, remember that was a bad year. The market really crashed in 2008, and it took a little while, and a lot of defined benefit plan firms failed, and the PBGC paid out $5.6 billion to employees. And this might be something that we see happening. I kind of am hoping that what we're going through now is very short-lived. I think you're hearing that and hoping, and that it doesn't cause a long-term recession. If it does cause a long-term recession, one way we'll know about it is this PBGC will be making large payments. Bad economic times, cause more plans to fail. That's pretty basic stuff right there. So now the next thing we'll do is define contribution plans. I think I'll make that another video. So we'll come out of this video and go into the second video, and I'll do defined contribution plans. Thank you.